Psalm 24, let's read this. Starting at verse 1, we'll go through all 10 verses. It says, "The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. For he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the rivers. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? And who shall stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to what is false and does not swear deceitfully. He will receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek the face of the God of Jacob, Selah. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty, the Lord, mighty in battle. Lift up your heads, O gates, and lift them up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord of hosts. He is the King of glory. Selah. If you've ever had your parents over for dinner, you know, as you grow up, there's this moment, at least there was like this epiphany that I had, that here are two people who have taken care of me my entire life, and now I'm welcoming them into my home, and I'm going to have the audacity to try to show them some hospitality, right? You want me to get you some coffee? You want a sandwich? You know, it's like, you have made me things literally my entire life, and now I'm, pretending to be a grown-up, and I've got my own home, and I'm going to welcome you, and I'm going to offer you something, right? It's a small act that cannot even become close to repayment for the act of raising a child. And it's similar when creation celebrates Christmas, that those of us who are created beings, as we are part of God's creation, his universe, that we welcome our creator. In Psalm 24, what we see is creation welcoming its creator. You see, Christmas is this. It's the celebration of creation welcoming the presence of its creator. That you have made us, and we're going to welcome you into our home. And so the Advent, the Latin for coming, the coming of the Savior, Jesus the Messiah, means that God who created everything was going to step off of his throne and step into his creation, which was marred by sin, which was filthy and unclean. He was going to come to bring holiness and to bring heaven and to bring salvation to his creation. And so three things I want you to see in this text is exaltation, exhortation, and then finally the entry of the King of glory. And so point one is exaltation. Let's begin there. This psalm begins with worship. It's exalting God at the beginning, initial outset of the song. And this song was actually historically sung on the first day of every week by the nation of Israel. They began to do this in their Babylonian captivity. If you went to Sunday school and know anything about the history of the nation of Israel, there was a period of their nation's history where they were overtaken, military speaking, and they were taken away as captives, as slaves into Babylon. And as they were in exile in Babylon, they noticed that in the cultures around them that the Babylonians were very religious. And the Babylonians they were polytheists, so they had many gods that they worshiped. And so every day of the week, the Babylonians had a different god that they sang songs to and worshiped. And Israel has one God. And so what they began to do is they went to Jesus' hymn book, his playlist, and they pulled out Psalms in accordance with their week. And so every Sunday, the first day of the week, they sang about creation. They sang about their God who created everything, who was going to come into creation as the Messiah, and they sang Psalm 24. Now, most of you guys probably didn't sing until you got here. Most of us hate each other by the end of the week, and we hate each other. We're all grumpy, and then we got to come in and get our Jesus fill. And so our hearts kind of change as we come together. Some of you guys are the exception. You're singing like Chris Tomlin on your way to church or whatever. Y'all are the weirdos, but that's cool. We need you guys. And so, but they come in, I want you to realize this. Sunday for the Jews in exile was not like Sunday for us. It wasn't normally a day of worship for them. See, they worshiped on the last day of the week, Saturday. And so as they come into Sunday, that's the first day of their work week. This was like singing on a Monday, right? Like we sing on Sunday morning. Y'all ever heard the song Easy Like Sunday Morning? That was, so I'm easy. Yeah, you know it. So that was not written by a church-going parent. I guarantee you that, right? Because it's not, Sunday mornings aren't easy. But if there's anything that's tougher than Sunday morning, that's got to be Monday morning, right? Instagram stories have a lot of those GIFs that talk about how terrible Monday mornings are, how hard it is to get out of bed and drink your coffee and get going and all that. And the Jews are waking up Monday morning, getting on their grind, and they're beginning it by singing. They're starting their day with worship on Sunday, and we think, okay, it's a worshipful day. No, this was a work day. And they're giving themselves to the Lord. This is a clear example of exaltation. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, they would sing. The world and those who dwell therein. And he has founded it upon the seas and established it upon the rivers. You see, not only is the earth the Lord's, they would acknowledge every Sunday. They would acknowledge that not only is everything we see yours, but everything in what we see is yours, God. It's like if one of our finest Milton PD would pull you over and they search your car and they find an illegal substance, they would say that car is yours and also the fullness thereof. Everything in it is going to be in your possession. You're going to be held liable for what they find in there as well. And so God has not just created the earth and he steps out from what is within it. No, he owns everything within it, including you and including all the things that you think you own. In Psalm 50, we see this. Every beast of the forest is mine, God says. The cattle on 1,000 hills. I know all the birds of the hills, and all that moves in the field is mine. If I were hungry, I would not tell you, for the world and its fullness are mine. Kids, what do you guys do when you're hungry? Who do you tell? Tell your mom and dad, right? You tell your mom and dad, you say, I'm hungry. Need some peanut butter and jelly. Ma, I need some meatloaf or something like that, right? You just start shouting that stuff, right? Well, God is our Father, right? He is not coming to us for his needs. He is saying, I am the provider of needs. He says, I'm not the one. If I'm hungry, I'm not going to tell you. He says, I am the provider of all things. And so that puts us in our proper place so that when we come to church, we can worship him because we understand that he is sovereign and he is our provider. You see, God's sovereignty should lead to our service. And after this psalm's introduction as the Lord is sovereign, what it moves into is an exhortation. So as they sang this and they acknowledged, okay, God, you are sovereign. You've created everything. It would lead naturally into an exhortation. So in light of that, what does that say about us? How should we approach him? And so that's point 2, which is exhortation. We see that in verse 3 and 4. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? And who shall stand in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who does not lift up his soul to what is false and does not swear deceitfully. Now, Old Testament worship was centered on God's presence in the temple. Everything about the Old Testament worship system was designed for them to travel to a temple. They had to be in a specific place, and they had to dress a specific way, and they had to bring specific animals, and all of these formulas had to be complete. And so these questions in verse 3 were designed to help them to reflect if they had done everything properly. Am I coming to worship properly? Now, we don't have to jump through all those hoops, but this is a good practice for us as Christians because we can ask ourselves, are we coming to worship with a proper heart? Are we coming with a pure heart? Are we coming with clean hands? Let me describe it to you this way. Y'all know my biggest idol is my truck, and I was in an accident recently. It wasn't my fault, and so I had some damage on my truck, and I got to just kind of turn the keys over to Keaton's Collision and let them fix it up for me. And they made me drive a stinking car for like 10 days. It was the worst 10 days of my life. But when I go to get my truck back, y'all got to understand, I never wash my truck. I'd never do it. I just don't think it's worth my time. And so I go to get my truck back, and they give me the keys, and I walk out, and I'm like, where's my truck? I don't see it. Because it was clean. It was so clean. I mean, it was just like that, ding. The rims were shiny. It wasn't that clean when I bought the thing. And they had just shined it up real nice for me. And here's why I don't clean my truck, because the outside doesn't affect me. I don't clean my truck because I'm selfish. I clean the inside. The inside's very important to me because that's my environment. That's where I'm alone. That's where I get to sing and nobody can judge my voice. And that's where I pray. That's where I do all these things. And so my inside, like I could kill one of my kids when they put those dum-dum wrappers from the bank and just leave them on the floor. I go ballistic on my children for that, right? Some of you guys, you'll clean your car, like you'll wash the outside, and then when I get in it to ride shotgun with you, you're brushing French fries off the passenger seat. You know what Jesus says about you? He says you're like a whitewashed tomb. that you clean the outside, but you're dead on the inside, right? So I'm biblical with my vehicle. I don't try to put on a front on the outside. I keep the inside clean. I just let it be muddy on the outside. But here's the deal. That when we come to God, it's not one or the other. You can't be an outside clean person only, or you can't be an inside clean person only. God wants the whole shebang. He says, when you come to me, you've got to not only have the outside clean hands. He said, you've got to have the inside clean, pure heart. You come to me with clean hands and a pure heart, and then I will accept your worship in my presence. And so we come to him. That is a high calling when you've had a long week and you're mad at your husband or your wife, or you're mad at your kids, and you're coming in and you have to go and you have to do this kind of house cleaning, spiritually speaking, and you have to worship. That's a high calling, isn't it? And you start to realize how filthy you really are and how unworthy you actually are to come to worship. And then you remember that Jesus is the one who cleans you up. That Jesus is the one who makes you worthy to stand and sing this morning or take communion this morning. That Jesus, because he came, is the only reason that you can come with pure hearts and clean hands. And you don't lift your souls to false, empty things. You lift your souls to the one true King who will, verse 5, bless you, and then you will receive blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of your salvation. Such is the generation of those who seek him, who seek the face of the God of Jacob. Selah. So we receive blessings from God. We can receive gifts, and we are generous in this season. We give gifts as an act of kind of re-showing what God has done to us, that he has gifted us with his son. He has gifted us with salvation. And so we give gifts in a small act of showing the gospel to one another. And so parents, could I urge you, make your gift giving this year gospel-centered? Can you make sure that any time your child is opening a present from you or anyone else, that you make sure that you remind them of the blessing that God has given generously to us? That Christ's gifts to us are built into our worship of him. Like the more we worship of him, the more we are blessed by him. And so when you seek the Lord, you are blessed. Psalm 105 says, seek the Lord in his strength. Seek his presence continually. Y'all ever play hide and seek? Kids, y'all ever play hide and go seek? Every now and then you do a little hide and seek. Don't ever hide from mom and dad, but every now and then you'll play hide and go seek with some of your friends and stuff. Judah got sick recently, and he was wanting to go to sleep. And he's got some neurological issues, and so Amanda was out of the state. And crap like that always happens when she's gone. That's just when, disaster strikes. And so I call her, and I'm like, Judah's lethargic, and he's slurring his speech, and, I don't know what to do, and I'm just going to let him go to sleep. And she's like, that is literally the worst thing you could do. Don't let him go to sleep. I'm like, okay, I got this. I'll keep him up. And so I get all the other kids together. This is why it's good to have 5 kids, because you got a little team. And I said, all right, here's our mission. We're going to keep Judah awake. And Micah's like, all right, I know what to do to keep him awake. We'll play hide and go seek. I'll be it. I'm going to count. And he closes his eyes and starts counting. And Judah's like, I'm going to go hide in my bed. And he went and got in bed, just went straight to sleep, right? And so I've learned I'm going to play that game with my kids when I need a dad break. Hey, Dad's going to play hide and go seek with y'all. I'm going to go hide in my bed and take a nap. And y'all see if you can find me. But when they went to look for Judah, it was extremely easy to find him, right? He was not well hidden. And what we find is that when we truly seek after God, we find he's not hiding from us. He's not far from us. God is close to us continually. Acts 17, Paul states in verse 27 that they should seek God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him, yet he is actually not far from each one of us. And so Christmas is a time where many of us feel alone. It's that moment of all the year that you're most susceptible to feel alone in a crowded room. You're around family that's weird. You're hanging out with friends that you might not really want to hang out with, but your spouse is making you or whatever, and you feel alone. I know a lot of you feel that way. And if we're not careful, sometimes the loss of loved ones, the loss of relationships can lead us to a place where we feel like God has distanced himself as well. And we feel super isolated. Let me tell you, any perceived distance you feel between you and God has been created by you, not by him. He's not backing away from you. And so if you feel distance this Christmas season between you and God, he is right there. Seek him. He is not hard to find. When the wise men are seeking him, what's God do? He puts a giant star in the sky to make sure that people can find his son. He's not hiding. And the incarnation reminds us of this, that he came to us. And we see this in his entry in verse 7. Lift up your heads, O gates, and be lifted up, O ancient doors, that the King of glory may come in. Who is this King of glory? The Lord, strong and mighty. The Lord, mighty in battle. There's this beautiful personification of the gates of Jerusalem lifting up their heads. It's like they've been guarding the city for so long, and they're getting tired, and their heads are starting to droop, and they say, hey, the Messiah is coming. The King of all kings is coming. Hey, can you lift up your heads? Can you wake up a little bit? Because something big is happening. The Creator King is coming. Jesus says, if the people don't praise me, then the rocks will cry out. There's lots of personification in the Bible. Sally Lloyd Jones in the kids Bible story, Jesus Storybook Bible is what it's called. She writes this about Jesus' birth. Mountains would have bowed down. Seas would have roared. Trees would have clapped their hands, but the earth held its breath. As silent as snow falling, he came in. And when no one was looking in the darkness, he came. You see, all of creation should have been anticipating the arrival of Jesus, but instead, most all of creation missed the fact that Jesus came. He was marginalized. He was looked upon as a podunk redneck from a town called Nazareth, where he was a carpenter's son and not seen to be much at all. And that was his first advent. But the good news is that in his second advent, he will rightfully establish himself as the King of all kings, and every knee will bow and every tongue will confess that he is Lord of everything. And this psalm says that he is mighty. Lange's commentary of this gives us insight into the Hebrew language here. It says that the word translated mighty, although properly an adjective, it's constantly used as a noun substantive. What that means is that it's the nearest equivalent in Hebrew to the classical term hero. The descriptor used for Jesus in Psalm 24 is that he is a hero. He is on a rescue mission. So the incarnation, the birth of Jesus in a manger, is first and foremost a rescue mission. He is a hero coming to save. And so as we go into Christmas this year, please remember that we're not just celebrating family. We're not just celebrating this Christmas spirit. We're not just celebrating a time where people seem to be happier than they normally are. Because let me give you a clue into beneath the surface. Most people aren't. But the reality of what we're celebrating at Christmas is the fact that a hero left the glory of everything to come to a fallen world to live the life you could never live in perfection, to die for you, to raise from the dead for you, and to promise his second advent where he will rightfully bring all of creation into its rightful place in the way he originally designed it. Christian, that's good news. Lost person, that is good news that you need to be obedient to. And so if you've never given your life to Jesus, could you please, I exhort you, could you please repent today and give your life to Christ? I promise you, he will adopt you into his family, hold you forever, and usher you into his kingdom.